Hello, everybody. Welcome back to It's Called Football as we bring you the highlights and details of what happened in Matchday 10 of the Premier League. Quick reminder as to the fixtures that took place over this matchday. We kicked off on Friday with just the one game as Crystal Palace and Tottenham went head to head in a London derby. We also kicked off Saturday morning with Chelsea and Brentford in another London derby, the Battle of West London, some people have called it. We then saw Arsenal versus Sheffield United, which took place just after Chelsea and Brentford. Bournemouth and Burnley faced off at the same time as the Arsenal match, and then Wolves and Newcastle went to battle in the late kickoff on Saturday. As is pretty much expected at the moment with this Tottenham side, they did have a little bit of a slice of luck, but ultimately they deserved to win this game, and Crystal Palace only scored a late consolation goal when they were already 2-0 down. But Tottenham won and deserved to win that game, it must be said. What was a little bit surprising, perhaps, is that Chelsea, after their much improved performance against Arsenal last weekend, somehow fell at home again as Brentford ran out 2-0 winners, both goals coming in the second half, after Brentford had withstood some decent pressure from Chelsea in the first half. Chelsea were a little unfortunate. They hit the bar in the first half at least once that I can recall, and they probably should have scored, but ultimately they lacked the clear penetrating threat to fully breach Brentford's back line. And then as is kind of the case in football, it comes back to bite you when you don't take your chances, and that's exactly what happened to Chelsea. Arsenal, on the other hand, uh, made short work of Sheffield United, running out 5-0 victors in this game, despite the fact that they had rotated almost half their team with players that don't normally start the games. Very, very impressive. And although they were only up 1-0 at halftime, they really turned the screw in the second half and made sure that their class showed through. Bournemouth are one of the headline makers of this weekend as they finally, at the 10th attempt, have picked up their first victory of this Premier League season, coming from behind to take the win against Burnley with a pretty spectacular winning goal to round off a performance that they have long been waiting for, both players, staff, and obviously the fans as well. And then Wolves put in a spirited performance to fight back and make sure that they did not lose the match to Newcastle, who led this game twice. Newcastle went both 1-0 up and then 2-1 up, and Wolves managed to equalize on each occasion after falling behind. Ultimately, they probably deserve their point. Newcastle will feel a little bit aggrieved that they've dropped points in a game that they probably should have been aiming to win. But then again, you remember that a few weeks ago, Wolves did manage to beat Manchester City when they hosted the champions. So perhaps not that shocking a result. In fact, Wolves genuinely might be a little bit disappointed that they didn't win this game. The remainder of our fixtures from Matchday 10 took place on Sunday, with West Ham and Everton going head to head in the early match, and then Aston Villa hosting Luton Town, Brighton hosting Fulham, and Liverpool hosting Nottingham Forest, all uh, just after the West Ham and Everton game. And then to round off this match day's fixtures, we saw a real thriller, or at least on paper, a thriller between Manchester United and Manchester City in the local derby. To many people's surprise, myself included, West Ham looked a little bit toothless, if that's the word, as they hosted Everton. Everton, to their full credit, put in a very, very impressive display and pretty much handled almost with ease anything that West Ham tried to throw at them. And Everton themselves looked quite dangerous on the attack every time they went forward. Ultimately, one of those instances did finally bear fruit, and they ran out 1-0 winners away at a ground that is not easy at all for opposing teams to come to. Aston Villa, as we sort of expected and said in our Matchday 10 predictions, we expected them to be fairly comfortable victors over Luton Town. Honestly, the biggest surprise for me in this game is that Luton managed to get a goal on Aston Villa. But Villa continue their impressive home form, and they are now on 12 home matches won in a row. Very, very impressive from Unai Emery's side. And they are a dark horse to keep your eye on in this league season because they are not falling away at all. Brighton, on the other hand, who many people tipped to break into the top four this season, are starting to slip up with some results here and there. Now dropping points at home to a struggling Fulham side. Now Fulham have taken points off Arsenal. They have put in tough performances now and then, but it has been few and far between. I guess this was just one of the occasions that Fulham decided to step up a little bit because although Brighton took the lead, Fulham didn't capitulate at that point. They kept on fighting and ultimately picked up a deserved point from this game. Liverpool ran out fairly comfortable 3-0 winners over Nottingham Forest. They didn't really break a sweat. Great skill from Liverpool, imagination from their passing, as well as mistakes in the Forest back line, which gifted Liverpool's third goal. Ultimately, all of these factors combined to give Liverpool a fairly comfortable win for almost the entire match. It didn't really look like Liverpool were in much danger at any point. And yeah, an expected result, I suppose. And then another result which may seem surprising given how big both the clubs are in the final game. United and City is always a heated derby, full of energy, and despite the fact that United haven't been amazing in recent seasons, they somehow do pick up results against Manchester City, perhaps because of the passion and the unpredictability of a local rivalry match. But that wasn't to be this time. It has to be said that Man City were a little bit fortuitous in how their first goal came around. They scored off a penalty, and by the letter of the law, that probably was a penalty. But on the flip side, there are many incidents like the one that resulted in the pen, which uh, which happened 4, 5, 6 times in every single game, and it was a little bit surprising, if that's the word, that this is the game where the referees finally decided to award a penalty for that kind of a challenge. But regardless, City's dominance showed through, and no one can deny that they deserve to win. They are a bit of a class apart right now from most teams in the league, and certainly compared to how Manchester United's league form has been this season, City are definitely on another level, and they deserve their win. So, how does this affect the league table? Well, not a lot of movement necessarily in terms of positions in the top half, as only Arsenal and Manchester City have swapped places for the third week in a row now. The reason being that although they are equal on goal difference and points, and Man City actually do have more wins, Arsenal are currently ahead on goals scored. So when goal difference is completely equal, the league is ordered based on who has scored more uh, to get their goal difference, and Arsenal currently have one more goal scored, which has helped their cause here at the moment. Obviously, very, very fine margins, but you never know what will happen, and sometimes at the end of a league season, it comes down to goal difference. But Tottenham's continue to lead the way at the moment. Their goal difference might not be the same or as good as the rest of the top four, but they have 2 more points. So full credit to them. They keep on picking up results even in tough games, and their next match is going to be a tricky one as well. So we will have to see how they do and whether they continue their unbeaten run. Both Tottenham and Arsenal have tough fixtures next weekend, which we'll go into in our Matchday 11 preview. Liverpool and Aston Villa continued to be right on the tails of the top three. Uh, and then you see Newcastle, Brighton, Manchester United, and West Ham still maintaining their spots amongst the top nine. Brentford has squeaked into the top half at the moment with their win at Chelsea, resulting in the Blues slipping back down again into the bottom half of the table. Like I said, although there isn't much movement in terms of places in the top half, what is visible a little bit uh, is that the top five are starting to just slowly pull away a little bit from the rest of this top half of the league table. You can see the points tallies in the far right, where there's not a lot of points separating the top five teams themselves, but then there's a little bit of a gap between them and sixth place and going on for the rest of the top half. So the league now is starting to take shape a little bit in terms of what you might expect to see for the table. Obviously, nothing is conclusive. There's not a huge points gap between teams anywhere in the top half. It can change within 2, 3 weeks easily. But based on the trajectory of how teams are performing right now, you can kind of start to see some patterns developing and where teams might start to stabilize over this top half. The bottom half has seen a lot more movement, actually. Um, you can still see a little bit of this whole pulling away that's happening in the bottom half, but there's a lot less stability in terms of teams' positions, which is fairly natural to see. Like we said, Chelsea have slipped back down into the bottom half for now. Uh, their next fixture is a tricky one next week, so it will be a little tough for them to work their way back up. But depending on whether they can get their tactics right and their performances back up to when they hosted Arsenal in match week 9, they could start working their way up. Of course, they can. We know they have the quality. Wolves again continuing to quietly go about their business. They're still sitting there maintaining pace at the moment with the other teams in the upper end of this top of of this bottom half, sorry. Um, their goal difference is the one thing that is kind of holding them back at the moment. They will need to get one or two very big wins if if they want to make sure that they're clear of this scrap between the other teams around them, because there's nothing to separate them with points with three other teams near them. But their goal difference is currently holding them back for sure. So they've got a little bit of work to do for sure. Crystal Palace have slipped down a little bit. They need to start picking up results sooner rather than later. And Fulham, the same could be said for them. Really, they picked up a point, yes, but they need to start winning games now. Really, they have to. Otherwise they risk being pulled back into this battle for the battle of the bottom three. Everton's perhaps surprising win at West Ham has now resulted in the fact that they are no longer within touching distance at the moment of the bottom four teams. They have a little bit of breathing space, but obviously they can't rest on their laurels. Everton have to focus on making sure they pick up more wins as soon as they can. Great result for them at West Ham, but they have to make sure that they continue to build from strength to strength. Nottingham Forest, obviously, they had a very tricky match this week going away to Liverpool. But when they start playing the teams around them now in upcoming games, they have to make sure that they're picking up wins against those teams now. 2 wins from 10 for Forest is not a good look at the moment. And they run the risk of being pulled back into that battle at the bottom. Bournemouth, obviously, the huge win that they picked up, huge for their morale at least, is big because not only is it their first win of the season, which is a huge mental block off the shoulders of the management and the players, but but obviously on points now they're out of the bottom three, and those relegation spots are now all occupied by the three teams that came up from the championship last summer. So it does speak a little bit to the quality at the moment of those bottom three teams because none of them are looking fantastic. Uh, they're constantly getting beaten. I mean, all you have to do is look at the losses for Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield United. Now, Sheffield United have obviously they've played Arsenal, they've played Tottenham, they've played Man City, then they've played Man United. There's a lot of tough teams in there they've played, but there are also games and teams that they should have been getting results from where they just haven't looked like they're getting results. I think Sheffield United now have had the joint worst start to any Premier League season since its inception. And at the moment, they're the worst in history in the Premier League for goals conceded after 10 games in the league. It's not a good situation for them at all. And for Sheffield United, the problem is that even if they are to win a game right now, that will only take them level on points with Burnley. And Sheffield's goal difference is just not good at the moment. That's where Burnley and Luton Town have a little bit of an advantage at the moment, but it's still very slim. It's not huge by the way of benefits that they've got. So, top moments from this match day. There's quite a few stories worth mentioning in case you missed the action or just want to recap of the big highlights that happened. First of all, Manchester City continue their charge back towards the top, as we all kind of knew and expected they would. For seasoned fans of the league, you know that Manchester City are never going to back away, and even when they don't look like they're a gelled team at 100%, they still have the ability to wipe teams off the pitch without getting out of second gear, which is pretty much what happened when they played Manchester United. They made some mistakes in possession, City, absolutely, but ultimately United made more mistakes defensively and offensively, and it ended up being about as wide a gap as you expect given the quality of the players on both teams right now. Erling Haaland scored two goals, one of them the dubious penalty call, and then one just good goal where the defender somehow left him unmarked. I don't know how you can possibly do that, given that you are facing the most dangerous striker right now in the game. But that's what Manchester United are doing right now. Third goal was scored by Phil Foden, their young English star that's been at Man City for a few years now. Uh, Overall, a dominant performance that people expected. Aston Villa, what do we say about them that hasn't been said already? They continue to pick up wins. They continue to have a good record at home. And yes, they were probably expected to beat Luton. The star of this game was Moussa Diaby, their new summer signing, who has really hit the ground running for Villa and has been heavily involved in all goal contributions, really, for Villa so far this season. They must be loving the fact that they've got him, and he looks like he's really enjoying life. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is an Everton striker who's been there for quite a while now, and he's had a lot of injury issues, a lot of spells in and out of the team, which haven't been the best for him to gain momentum and confidence. But he looked back to his very, very best in this game against West Ham. He was constantly frustrating to the West Ham defenders, and he ended up scoring the goal, which ended up being the match winner. Um, I like Calvert-Lewin. I think he's a good player, and he's been very unfortunate with injuries. It was good to see him uh, put in such a top accomplished striker's performance, and it was very nice to see him score a really really well taken goal. Good for him. With Arsenal's first choice striker Gabriel Jesus out with a hamstring problem for what might be a few weeks, uh, the responsibility falls to Eddie Nketiah most of the time when Jesus is out, and there's always scrutiny around him, not just from outside the Arsenal fan base, but within it as well. Uh, he Most people will kind of say, or at least agree, that they don't feel he has necessarily what it takes to be the starting striker all the time for a top level club. But he put in a performance in this game that really might make people rethink that a little bit. Now, admittedly, it was against Sheffield United, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Eddie Nketiah has now scored his first ever Premier League hat trick. Three incredibly well taken goals. The first two were both inside the box, and were pure instinctive strikers finishes. And the third one was a brilliant, uh, powerful drive from outside the box straight into the top corner that nobody saw coming. Whether you were in the stadium or watching on TV, no one at all saw that one coming. And hats off to him, really. Hats off to Nketiah. What a hat trick. What a performance. He even had the chance to make it four when a penalty was awarded in the game, but he very generously passed it off to his teammate who needed a goal and needed to get on the score sheet. Really, really good job. And maybe this becomes the moment that he sparks into the striker that his manager Mikel Arteta thinks he can be. It would be wrong of us to go through the moments of the match today without highlighting Bournemouth, who finally picked up their first win of this season, thanks to Philip Billing, who scored an outrageous goal from 40 plus yards out to win the match for Bournemouth against Burnley. They had fallen behind. Burnley had scored first. Bournemouth tied it up, and then this moment of magic. Um, Finally might be the turnaround in fortune that Bournemouth have been waiting for. Their first win under their new manager, and good for them. Good for them. I did think that maybe this was the one where they could pick up a result, and good for them that they managed it. And finally, a little word on Liverpool, who continue to look impressive and dominant in a lot of their games. And hats off to Diogo Jota, who's pictured here holding up a shirt for his teammate Luis Diaz, where we unfortunately heard that his parents, Luis Diaz is from Colombia, and news broke the evening before their game that his parents have been kidnapped in Colombia, and his mother has since been returned safely, but the search is continuing at the moment for Diaz's father. Luis Diaz was not in the matchday squad, obviously, because of all this going on with his family. But I thought it was a really nice gesture from Liverpool to acknowledge him and to make sure that he's in their thoughts. He's in all our thoughts, and we sincerely hope that his parents are both return safe and sound. No one should have to go through what Luis Diaz must be at the moment. The big match, while it is tempting to perhaps talk about the Manchester Derby, ultimately that result felt about as routine as you could expect at the moment, given the quality and the way that the two sides are playing. A much more notable result was Brentford's visit to Chelsea. Like we said, Chelsea were actually dominating a lot of the first half. They hit the bar, they had good chances. They just didn't quite create a clear enough chance or take clear enough chances to score goals. And almost an unwritten law in football is that if you don't take your chances and you've been dominating the game is almost going to ironically set it up that the team which has been defending the entire match is somehow going to get a goal and then win the game. And early in the second half, that's exactly what happened. Chelsea's defense was all over the place, leaving Brentford's tall striker in Pinnock free for a header at the back post, unmarked, completely able to do it without any pressure. And Brentford took a lead against the run of play, it has to be said, because Chelsea had dominated the whole first half, really. But credit to Brentford, they saw an opportunity, an opening, they took it, and they kept it going. And then, obviously, from there, Chelsea are now chasing the game again at home, and that will either go one of two ways. Either the team chasing the game will make their pressure count, or they'll get hit on a counter attack. And for Chelsea, unfortunately, the latter happened here in the last minute of the game. as even Chelsea's goalkeeper went up to try and attack from a corner. The ball was cleared, and it ultimately led to two Brentford players free to run through on goal, where you can see the man in green is Chelsea's keeper desperately trying to chase back. He wasn't successful, and there was an empty net for Brian and Mbeumo to tap into and seal a win in the 96th minute for Brentford as they ran away 2-0 victors. Not at all good from Chelsea, um, given how they played against Arsenal last week. Their fans and their players and their board and manager, everybody associated with the club would have been expecting so much better than this. But Brentford, congratulations to them. Fully, huge congratulations. And they've deserved this. They have actually now won the last three times that they have been to Chelsea. They are the first team in history to win their first three Premier League games away to Stamford Bridge, away to Chelsea. For Chelsea, there needs to be a little bit of an inquest because with each passing week that they're not getting into form, more questions have to be asked. Why is a squad of such talented players not yielding results? There's got to be an answer at some point soon. So let's round it off by looking at how we did in our predictions. I had said that Spurs would win this match 2-0 against Palace in the opening game of the weekend. And were it not for that late consolation goal from Crystal Palace, it would have been spot on, but ultimately close enough. Chelsea and Brentford, I was completely wide of the mark. I thought Chelsea would follow up a strong performance with another one. Um, I guess maybe I underestimated Brentford or overestimated Chelsea. I don't know what it is. I definitely overestimated Sheffield United. I watched that game and they were not good. They looked quite poor, it must be said. Uh, they're in trouble. There's no easy way to put this. But a 5-0 win for Arsenal was dominant and probably needed for their goal difference to keep pace with the other teams in the top. Bournemouth and Burnley, I'm quite happy as a prediction. I got spot on. I like Bournemouth as a team and as a side, and I can feel for their fans who had gone 9 matches of the season without seeing their side win a game, and it was good that they finally got one on the board. Wolves, I have to hold my hands up and apologize to them and their fans. Didn't know that they would have it in them to keep getting results against the top sides that are visiting. The Man City result, I thought maybe was a bit of a fluke, and I keep underestimating Wolves. I should probably learn my lesson soon. But well done to them to pick up a 2-2 draw. And Newcastle need to start looking at how they can pick up wins more regularly in games that they should be winning. Full credit to Everton as well, who uh, have had up and down form, so I'm not sure that I would have expected them to win this game because West Ham have been quite good to kick off their season, but very well done. Completely wide of the mark on that prediction, but well done to Everton. Villa and Luton, like I said, it was pretty much a coasting victory for Villa. An own goal by the Villa keeper, Emiliano Martinez, was the only thing that got Luton their goal. Close enough to prediction, really. Brighton and Fulham, I was a little surprised by. I was not expecting Fulham to put up as much of a fight as they did because they simply haven't in most of their games this season. But credit to Fulham for managing to hold off a very talented attacking force in Brighton. And Liverpool as well. Expected them to win. The only reason I said that Forest might score one is because Liverpool have been leaking the odd goal somehow every game. They're not quite as defensively solid as they used to be, but they looked back to their defensive best in this game. Forest caused very few problems, and uh, yeah, I mean it's always tough going to Liverpool. I wasn't really expecting them to pick up any sort of a result, but well done to Liverpool really for keeping Forest out quite comfortably. And Manchester United, I was a little disappointed in them, honestly. They being at home, you would expect that you'd put in a better performance and at least score once against your local rivals. Um, quite poor, to be honest, from United, and clinical as usual from Man City, who you would expect to be picking up a win, given the chasm of quality at the moment between these two teams. Still a little surprising how easily Man City took control of this game, but hey ho, that's what happens in football. That's about it for us from our recap of Premier League's Matchday 10. Non-Premier League related, just a huge congratulations to Lionel Messi, who today has been officially awarded his eighth Ballon d'Or, acknowledging him as the best player over the past year in football. Really, really hard to dispute that, given that he led his country to the World Cup and was dominant along the way. In that, he was instrumental in their success. And everyone who watches the game with an unbiased view knows that he is the best player in the game. Doesn't matter that he's 36 years old, he's still an incredible talent and probably the best the game has ever seen. But huge congratulations to him. He deserves it. It might be the last time we see Lionel Messi at this level of the game. Unfortunately, he is getting a little older, and playing in the US now, it's possible his performances might not get the same coverage as they did when he played in Europe. But like we said, well done, richly deserved. And we'll leave you there for now. We'll be back soon with a Matchday 11 preview from the Premier League. And remember, it's called football.